The situation in Gaza is dire and getting worse by the day, especially for children. The World Health Organization says every 10 minutes in Gaza, a child dies. UNICEF says the most dangerous place in the world to be as a child is the Gaza Strip. They say it's for so many reasons, including a lack of water, food, and medical aid. It's a catastrophe happening right before the world's eyes. ABC's Britt Clennett has more now on the humanitarian crisis occurring in real time and the push for a ceasefire.
Tonight, with the humanitarian crisis worsening inside Gaza, an alarming report from the UN says the entire population is facing crisis levels of hunger. Hundreds clamouring for soup. Our team in Rafah witnessing the despair, children clutching pots and pans, patiently waiting. Samia Habush telling us if it weren't for this plate, people would have slaughtered themselves. There is no gas, no electricity, there is nothing. The World Food Programme saying water is also scarce. Dozens lining up at this water tank.
If you don't have water and if you don't have food, what happens to you? You starve.
Aid groups saying only a fraction of the aid needed is trickling in. Today, the White House saying they are working to scale it up.
You have to remember this is also a war zone. It's an area of conflict, and that greatly increases the complexity of getting humanitarian assistance in a safe, secure manner.
Israel continuing to assault from the air and on the ground, destroying what the IDF claims to be a strategic tunnel network used by Hamas to connect the homes of its top leaders. And tonight, calls for a ceasefire growing louder as a senior Israeli official saying negotiations have stopped for now. Protesters gathering outside the Defense Ministry in Tel Aviv as the War Cabinet meets.
What are you asking the government to do tonight?
I'm asking them to offer a deal now and bring them all back. We can't leave anyone there.
Such trying times. Our thanks to Britt for that. For more on this crisis, we're joined now by Joe English, an emergency communications specialist for UNICEF. Joe, thank you for joining us. According to UNICEF's figures, children in the Gaza Strip no longer have access to 90% of their normal water sources. And we understand your team, in most cases, aren't even able to get supplies or equipment in to repair the heavily damaged water and sanitation systems. What are your teams in Gaza telling you, and why is this so dangerous, especially for children?
When you think of the critical things that children need to survive and to thrive, every single one of them is lacking in Gaza at the moment. We know there's no safety. Children continue to be killed and injured in staggering numbers. As you say, there's very, very little access to safe drinking water. Less than half a gallon per child per day, which is below the recommended amount, even just for survival. There's no access to food. We believe that roughly 300,000 children under the age of 5, that is every single child under the age of 5 in the Gaza Strip, are at high risk of severe malnutrition. And so there's no respite for children. There's no escape for children. And so every single thing which any parent would want for your child is not there. And we cannot get in to provide the vast majority of these children with the situation on the ground as it is. We need a ceasefire.
Just staggering statistics that you're reporting to us. We've also seen reports that the IDF is pumping salt water from the Mediterranean Sea in order to flood the network of tunnels under Gaza. Israel maintains that they must destroy the tunnels in order to force Hamas out. But what would that do to Gaza's aquifer and soil health long term?
Look, we've seen these reports. I don't know the specific details of what is planned or, how the tunnels are constructed. But if there is any risk, of salination, further salination to the aquifer, that could have not only an impact in the short term, but also a long-term impact on the viability of safe drinking water in the Gaza Strip. And we know that children, as you say, less than 90% of what they need. And so anything that could put that at risk, is extremely concerning.
As you know, depriving a population of food and water is a war crime, and some humanitarian groups have already condemned Israel in recent days. Do you agree with that assessment, that Israel is guilty of war crimes? And what would you call on Israel to do next?
Look, there is a process that plays out in terms of war crimes and these kind of attacks and instances, and that has to play out. I think what is needed now desperately is a ceasefire. There has to be an end to the fighting. Nothing is going to bring back the children, the parents, the grandparents who have been killed, whether that was on October 7th or in the days since. It's now 3 weeks since the ceasefire ended. And families are exhausted. They are just, they are being pushed to the absolute limit, because when we talk about no safety, no water, no food, there's also none of the usual ways that UNICEF is able to provide a modicum of respite, whether that's getting children back into school or providing psychosocial support.
Given the desperation in Gaza in terms of fatalities and widespread destruction, what do you see as the long-term consequences of Israel's actions, whether intended or not?
Look, this is a generation of children who have experienced 75 days of almost unimaginable pain and loss and heartbreak. And for many children, unfortunately, this is not the first time that they have experienced conflict in their short lives. And we know the reverberations that this kind of distress, this kind of trauma can have on children. But while the bombs continue to fall from the sky and disease stalks the children of Gaza right now, there is very little in terms of medical support, and if something like cholera takes hold or other waterborne diseases, that could just be yet another devastating blow for children. And so the sooner that there is a peaceful solution, the sooner everyone will be able to begin to rebuild their lives.
And we know that it's said that kids are very resilient. We can only hope and pray that that's the case in this situation. Joe English, we thank you so much for your time and insight. Really appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Linsey.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.